I'm Myra Deister. I'm the at-large representative on the CSTA board, and I'm the proctor, so if you need anything, just raise your hand. I'll come see if I can help you out. I'm introducing your two speakers today. The first one is Kristen Violet. She is a teacher of computer science at Newton High School in Newton, Connecticut, and she's been teaching technology for 17 years at the high school and college level. She's also an educational technology consultant for CPEP? CPEP. Okay, and that stands for Catalyst Powering Educational Performance. Okay, Kristen holds a BS in English and an MED in Technology and Education. And we have Shailene from MIT, and she manages the education outreach for the App Inventor project at the MIT Media Labs. Shay's work is informed by her early career in software development, followed by a decade of education research at, is it Turk? Mm-hmm. Okay. Shay holds a BS in computer science and an EDM in technology and education. Drawing upon this multi-layered background, she finds personal meaning in her work developing programs and tools to engage underrepresented people in meaningful computing experiences. And I want to thank them for doing this presentation today.
All right, so I'm going to start by giving you a little, you can hear me okay? An overview of App Inventor. How many people here have already used App Inventor? Okay, so maybe half, a little more than half. Our purpose is not to do like a workshop or teach you how to use App Inventor. In fact, everything you find out from us today, you can go make use of, even if you still have yet to log on to App Inventor and use it for the first time. So that's okay. During our talk, if you would like to add questions and comments, we're trying something called Today's Meet that I didn't even know about and Kristen told me all about, and it looks pretty neat. So I would love it if we can, even just for our own purposes, maybe you'll find this tool useful for your classes or something. So let's just try to use it and see how it works. So you can go to this URL, todaysmeet.com/CSTA. And I believe when you enter your name and click join, it's not like you've signed in or anything. It just puts your name on your posts. So you can make comments and questions there, and we'll check it as we move along. Okay, so MIT App Inventor is a project of the MIT Media Lab, which is where I work. And I just love that picture of the Media Lab because it looks so lit up from the inside. It's a pretty neat building. It's pretty new. But the Media Lab has been around for a while now. That's just the new addition to the building. So I'm not going to read off all of this for you, but the gist of what goes on at the Media Lab is it's very interdisciplinary. We have architects, medical doctors, engineers, technologists, even linguists. I mean, all kinds of backgrounds and fields are represented in the student body. It's a master's program and a PhD program. And being there is just, it really fosters creativity. There's so much going on, so many different kinds of projects. So the key of the Media Lab, one of the tenets of what we all believe in, is the ethic of learning by doing, playful learning and doing things to learn in a creative way. So to that end, playing through self-directed discovery, learning through self-directed discovery, sometimes described as play. You're probably all familiar with Piaget. I won't bore you with an education lecture, but I think it's helpful to know, just as a little bit of background so you can see where App Inventor is coming from with the materials and tools we develop, that based on what's known about how people learn, specifically Seymour Papert, who was one of the founders of the Media Lab, that we're building upon the idea of constructivism with what Papert called constructionism, which is learning by building something. And that's pretty much what App Inventor is all about. So some of you might know about Scratch, the programming language. I think probably almost everyone here does. And it's not a coincidence that App Inventor has a similar kind of programming interface. The blocks-based programming environment is intended to be approachable by beginners, and very approachable for building something so that you can learn by doing. So, creative construction. And the Center for Mobile Learning, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why is it called the Center for Mobile Learning and what does that mean. We promote learning anytime, anywhere, for anyone. So we're focusing on tools that empower learners. Specifically, this little tagline here at the bottom, I find myself saying a lot, is that we want people to be creators rather than consumers of technology. That was the reason that Hal Abelson went off to create App Inventor when he did. He really he has this term he uses called personal mobile computing, that you should be able to compute on the device that you keep with you all the time, and you should be able to do things and build things that are important to you, that it's not just a receiving device. Okay, so App Inventor is blocks-based, so there are no syntax errors. Lower barrier to entry because it looks inviting, it's colorful and friendly, and you know, has some nice tutorials that get you up and going fast so you can build your first app in half an hour. It's fully functional. Sometimes people are surprised to hear that. It really accesses all of the phone's functionalities. We even are just about to roll out near-field communication support for devices that have NFC. So as phones get more capabilities, App Inventor we keep building more modules to connect to. What is near-field communication? It's like the tap-to-pay thing where your phone has a little radio frequency that can communicate, but very near field, very close by. It's like the tap-to-pay thing. But it can turn the camera on, it can take a picture, it can save the picture, it can read the GPS data, send texts, receive phone calls, send phone calls, access your contact list. Anything that your phone can do, App Inventor can tap into. And we're actually working on some exciting things with sensors, like for external sensors, things that you could be reading over Bluetooth that will extend. Basically, your phone can become like a Swiss Army knife toolkit. And of course, you can package and share your apps. Right now, App Inventor is Android only, but it really is real programming. You can make a real app, and there are apps up on the Google Play Store that have been created with App Inventor. Okay, so here's a little bit of the history of like where did App Inventor come from, and how did it get to be what it is. I hope those pictures aren't too dark, but you may know these people. Eric Klopfer runs the teacher education program at MIT. And he's really into games for learning and simulations, especially for learning science. So his lab is where I actually sit and where the App Inventor program is situated. Even though if you look up on MIT's website, you'll see App Inventor is part of Mitch Resnick's research group. It's really a span of these three professors' work. Mitch Resnick's the creator of Scratch. So he is an advisor to the App Inventor project and has a hand in what the direction of the Center for Mobile Learning is. But Hal Abelson, right in the middle there, is the creator of App Inventor, the inventor of App Inventor. And he really had this idea based on a class that he taught in fall 2008 at MIT to CS students. But he wanted it to be a mobile apps class, getting students to build mobile apps and learn about mobile computing. And he spent so much time teaching Objective-C and Java that he didn't think they really got into like the design principles of mobile apps. And he had this idea, I need something that's more entry level so they don't get caught up in the syntax and like understanding how all the parts work. And I want them to just access the functionality and think bigger about the kinds of things you can do with mobile. And he was due for a sabbatical, so he went off to Google in Mountain View, California, and got the Google engineers there to hop on board with him and build App Inventor. So some of you might remember it was originally called Google App Inventor, and that's because it was originally a Google project. When Google Labs, was changing course and closing down, Google changes course every now and then, they were no longer going to support App Inventor in-house, but they were very generous in giving Hal a grant to take App Inventor back to MIT. And with that grant, he was able to establish the Center for Mobile Learning, hire some staff. That's why I came on board. We have some developers, software developers, and other support staff. And that was almost 2 years ago that grant was made. So we're almost at year 2 of this establishment of the Center for Mobile Learning. And that's when that enabled App Inventor to get rebranded as MIT App Inventor. And now we host everything. We handle the software. We're hosting the stuff in the cloud. Still very much based on Google tools. As you know, you need a Google account to log in and everything. The partnership with Google is still very close. Okay, so when we launched took over from Google and actually launched as MIT App Inventor, that was March of last year, there were about 75,000 users. In June, we were approaching 1 million users. We're probably over that now. And that is just a remarkable expansion in 1 year's time. App Inventor, it's spreading like wildfire. I sometimes feel like it sells itself. We don't try to, promote it or advertise it. It's just a great tool that is really fun and engaging. So the user base just grows and grows without us really. I mean, we're glad it's happening, but it's not like we're, seeking people out. It's a very popular tool. So a few quick slides about how does it work. Some of you may know these things, so I don't want to bore you, but it is free. It's online. This is one of the web pages that you can get to, but the tabs I like to point out for you to check out regularly are the Teach tab over there on the right has materials for teachers. The Setup tab in purple you'll need if you've never run App Inventor before. The Forums tab, there's an educators forum underneath that tab that I invite you all to join. And Tutorials is the place to go after you've done the setup to find out how to start using App Inventor. And again, it's all free. The projects are all stored up on our servers in the cloud, and you need a Google account to authenticate and log in. There's a designer that is almost WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. Pretty self-explanatory menu there on the left, and that's where you find all the components that access the phone's functionality. And then you can switch between the designer and the blocks editor. This is where you program the app's behavior. I'm thinking this screen is a little dark, but if any of you are thinking, wait, that doesn't look like the blocks I recognize, the colors have changed because there's a new version of App Inventor coming. It's actually available if you wanted to check it out, but tomorrow we'll have an announcement that we're calling it App Inventor 2, and it's at ai2.appinventor.mit.edu. And you can actually go there now if you'd like to check it out. It's all in the browser. The blocks editor won't load separately anymore. But know that what's there at ai2.appinventor.mit.edu is alpha software. It's still in testing. In fact, what you'll see when you get to that URL was released last night at like midnight. We're developing this as we speak. But it's coming, and it's great, and this is what it's going to look like. All right. I have already spoken for 10 minutes, but I'm just going to have 3 more slides. Why mobile apps? I've already said how popular App Inventor is. There's a hook. Giving students something that's personal and meaningful really hooks them in and gets them interested in building things with technology. It can also be a great hook into STEM fields. The real-world relevance is innate because we carry these phones around with us all the time. It's easy to come up with things that are relevant and real-world because you're already doing so much with your mobile device. Portability equals usefulness, and sometimes it's shocking to me how simple that is. You can build a very simple app that is extremely useful because you can take it with you. So I could give more examples of that, but I don't want to talk too long. We can get into that in a little bit. But that's a really key idea that's simple and beautiful because it's so simple. And the community aspect, this is especially good for engaging students that are more into social and chatting with their friends. Often that is true for females, is that it's easy to share what you've done and build things that connect people, so social types of apps. So these are the types of things. This slide I often put up when people are trying to brainstorm about what to do with App Inventor, that you can make sensing things, you can make socially interactive things, you can have fully AV-enabled things. There's haptic and video and audio feedback, and being location-aware is another really wonderful, wonderful piece of what you can do with App Inventor. So this is my slide that I say is why I do what I do. And I won't read this out for you either, but this is what CSTA is all about too. If we don't expose students to computing in a way that every student gets a chance to see that it's something that they might like and can be good at, can be a gateway to their future. And App Inventor, I have found, is a really empowering and in some cases life-changing experience for some students. They didn't think that they were one of those people who could get inside that black box and figure out how a computer works, how you give it commands and make it do what you want. And when they build something with App Inventor, I think partly because it's very current and relevant because it's an app that they're building, but also because it has that coolness factor, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was for me. I really like this. I'm going to do more. And there have been cases of students that have switched majors and become computer science majors. And not that that's the only good outcome, but to see that kind of a transformation is remarkable. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kristen. And I think we'll hold questions till Kristen gives you some more. She's going to dive into what she has done with App Inventor at Newtown High School in Connecticut, with a special course that she was asked to build about a year ago, maybe a little longer than a year ago. Kristen contacted me and said, I've been given this grant, or well, you can describe how it got started, and I'm building an App Inventor course, and so we've been friends ever since. So here's Kristen.
All right, we're good. Well, hello, everybody. As Jay just said, my name is Kristen Violet, and I teach at Newtown High School in Connecticut. And last year, I had an opportunity, well, about a year ago now, we had an opportunity to write a grant, and we received funding to start a new course. And we wanted to do a capstone course because that's coming down as a state requirement in Connecticut for all high school students. So I was able to get $40,000 and start a course, which was quite nice. And I'm in a great school system where they do support creative ideas. So I started doing some random searches on the internet, came across Ralph Morelli's name at Trinity College and connected with him, which connected me to Shay, and that was all about a year ago. So starting off the school year, I had just the intention of doing just this new class called App for That, is what we called it. And it was a full year capstone course, and I had opened it up just for juniors and seniors because the nature of a capstone is to capture your years of experience in high school in a culminating project, and that's not really well represented if you just entered as a ninth grader. But I quickly found out that I was also going to be using App Inventor in another course, which is the Connecticut Innovation Academy. And that's 9th through 12th, and I'll go through these a little bit more individually. So I can show you tell you a little bit more about how we decided to use App Inventor in that class for individual projects as well as a team project. And then I also do some educational consulting work with CPEP. It used to be called the Connecticut Pre-Engineering Program, but recently changed. And so we offer after-school programs and a Saturday program that we decided to start introducing mobile app development into, where CPEP used to be more of a hands-on science model. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. The course down at the bottom, which as long as you have this link, it is kind of lengthy a bit, but all the resources that we have will be available to you, as well as this PowerPoint. So don't feel that you need to rush to write anything down. So I was fortunate enough, like I said, to have a new class App for That, and we were able to use a couple devices. A lot of research on devices was done, so we can talk about that another day if need be. But the original plan was to use what was already out there. As Shay mentioned, there's a plethora of excellent tutorials, some that are on the MIT site, but also Dave Wobler and co-authored this book, App Inventor, and if you've seen this before, then you know how valuable this site is, because not only is this a book full of tutorials, but also this website here provides a course outline for you, a curriculum piece. It aligns it with CS concepts and principles, which is very helpful. In addition, there's video casts, so if there's times that you feel that you're maybe not there yet, or the kids need to watch it again or whatnot, there's all these resources right here. So appinventor.org is an amazing resource if you want to implement this into the classroom. And that's where I started off with. And once we went and did a couple of the tutorials, all the students at least had their hands dirty with App Inventor. I thought that the next thing that we would do in the App for That class is to go and see what other apps were already created. I think it's really important with your students that they see what apps have been created with App Inventor. The apps that the kids are using today are very sleek and advanced, and they have great scope, but when you're starting off learning mobile app development, we want to be a little bit more realistic about, let's see what we can make, and then we'll get there. But I found that my students were like a little disheartened at first because they had this great idea, like, I'm going to make Angry Birds in a week, and I love your enthusiasm. However, we need to walk before we run sort of concept. So one of the assignments or projects that I had my students do was to actually go out to the App Inventor Gallery, and this is another resource that's available to you as well, and it's where people are sharing the apps that they have developed. So this is useful to get students to see what is being created up there, and it's a community of users that range from all over the gamut in terms of age and ability. So I had this assignment here, and you'll see at the bottom of the slide, there's a link to the assignments. I'm not going to show you the assignments, but just give you the outline of really what was the objective. But all the assignment materials that I passed out to my students are available to you. Of course, you'll have to tweak it and own it your own way. But I had the students go out and check the functionality, usability, aesthetics, and the codes of existing apps. And then they had to look at it through the developer's eyes. You know, what's really good about this app? What could be improved? What are some solutions? So I think it provided students a way to start objectively thinking and critically thinking about work that's already been done. Of course, from there, we want students to start building their own projects. So we did have some of their own creative projects. I find that it's really challenging to come up with a set of parameters and then matching rubrics when you're in a course where every student's doing a different project. So that was a struggle. And I talk a little bit more about some challenges and successes in the end, but I was fortunate to have a small class. I'm a little concerned that my class of 11, I now have 65 students enrolled next semester, so we'll see how that works out still. But the kids were able to, they worked well together. Obviously they present using a document camera, I found was the easiest. And in the end, we had students by the end of the year doing real world applications. We were approached by a Regional Education Service Center for a couple students to develop an app, $4 and time, and they were able to create a teacher evaluation app that will be used in the state of Connecticut. And also another student pictured in the far corner was creating an app for his physics teacher, wanted a way for students to query each other before a test. And so how can I create multiple quiz apps and delete? And both of these projects were real eye-openers for myself as well as the students to see how involved they were, and time and dedication. So that was really valuable that students were able to kind of come up with their own projects. And as you know, Newtown school system got a little derailed this past year. So kind of, taking the good with the bad and turning it into a project, because we're teachers, that's what we do. And so another thing that I found that was really useful, and this can be applied to anything, was that the students in that course had to come up with an app for a service learning project. And I gave them a theme, either moving forward, giving back, or helping and healing. And it was really about them coming up with a unique project idea and actually doing some project management in terms of the outline, who are the beneficiaries, how are you going to project this in the timeline, how are you going to market it, how will you assess the success or failure of it, and whatnot. So this was student-driven, and they were able to carry this out throughout the school year. All of their work, as suggested by Dave Wobler, I believe, and Ralph, was always kept on the student portfolio. We chose to use Google Sites. There's pros and cons to that. But as you'll see, there's just a brief write-up on each one of the students' apps in terms of, what did they learn from it, what's an improvement, what's something they would like to add if they had more time. And then, of course, just the QR code there for people to have easy access to download the app. And so the students, I think, were able to take this not only with their apps, but have a way to show it to the world. And I think that they had a lot of pride in that. There's also, I had them create a design journal as well, which is a little bit more personal, so we didn't post it there. So for the most part, that was really the scope of the app for that class. But the other class that I also worked with was the Connecticut Innovation Academy. This is a unique class in that it's project-based, and there's also a state competition. But each year, the students are given a challenge, and that challenge is to create, well, this year was to create a mobile app that was centered around the concept of responsible design. And so we had to come up with an app, and it's vague, it's intentionally vague, for the students can apply it as needed. And so the students work together, and in addition to creating this team project, they also have to create an individual project as well. So the first half of the year, the students are creating their own mobile app prototype. It doesn't have to be fully functioning, just merely because of the time. But they also have to create a white paper, and they also have to create an elevator pitch. And so they have this perspective of, let me come up with an idea, how am I going to outline my business model and the scope of the project in a white paper and present it to venture capitalists. So they have this as the beginning of their course, and then as a team, they come up with an idea that will actually take to the competition. And that's much more involved in terms of having the app fully functioning, as well as creating an entire marketing scheme, a digital media, social media campaign, logos, company name, trademark searches, copyright research, writing a white paper, website, commercial, the whole slew. But here we used some of the things that worked well in this is that obviously having the team building and having the round table concept where kids are always sitting around the table sharing what have they done, what do they need to get done, what do they need for help from the group in order to get it done. That was able to work well. And we used a software called Basecamp, which is a project management software. And it is a paid service, but I find it to be very useful. I always tell them it's like Facebook without the fun, so they at least kind of know the concept. But we were able to use App Inventor. The students were able to use it for their individual prototypes as well as for our final state competition, which was great. So in terms of the competition, you know, you see students here, they brainstorm the idea, they design, they develop it. They do a lot of peer evaluation, and you'll see that there's a couple guided peer evaluation sheets, but a lot of it is informal. And here you see that they need to present their ideas to each other in a Shark Tank type format in order to see if they would get invested by their peers. So having the App Inventor in this course was crucial because now the students aren't no longer drawing their mobile apps on graph paper. You know, they can actually create a digital working prototype, even if it's just changing from screen to screen or making a couple buttons work. Every student walked out with something that they made individually. And then, as a team, we actually used App Inventor to create the entire mobile app, which, you know, they won first place at the competition, so that was pretty cool. So here they are at the expo, and you can see that it's a pretty large event. There's several thousand people that participate in this multi-course challenge. And so we're partnered with IBM, so they have their judges come and we have to pitch their ideas, and the students create an expedition booth, and they have to do a pitch themselves. So as you can see in the background, you see a lot of the screen there, and all of this was made with App Inventor. So having App Inventor, being able to implement it into the high school classroom, we were able to use it in 2 different classes, and the students are now individually continue on making their own apps because they're excited about it. They were able to do it themselves. Just like Shay said, that people thought they could never do it before, did. And that was significant. We're seeing the same experience here with the other group that I mentioned was CPEP, which is Catalyst Performing Educational Performance. And this is a nonprofit organization in Connecticut to help underrepresented youth get excited about careers in the area of STEM. And we usually do this in after-school programs, but recently we started doing Saturday programs as well. And there's summer programs. Right now we have 9 sites running, about 60 to 100 kids each, doing gaming and math. So, but in the Saturday programs and the after-school programs, they wanted to start getting mobile app development infused into their curriculum as well. And so they reached out to me, and we were able to design a program that we ran successfully on Saturday in the fall. And the after-school programs, actually, we just outlined and mapped out the curriculum, and that'll be piloted in the Danbury High School system this upcoming semester. So just like with the other courses, you have every kid do a couple of the tutorials, so they all get to try their hand at it. But App Inventor won't be for every kid in your class, right? So you have them try it and get exposure and learn how to do a little bit of it. And some of that stuff is really individualized. So you're sitting at your one computer, you're making your app. Sure, I can share my app with you when I'm done, but I found as a teacher, one of the challenges that I had was trying to build community within the classroom. How do you get that group work going on when one person's making an app? Some projects are just really hard to get kids to work together. So that's why I came up with, instead of Hello Purr, which is the first tutorial, we came up with Hello Friend. And it's using the same skill set as Hello Purr, but they have to go out and take pictures of people in their class, get a voice recording, a sound bite, maybe somebody's rapping or singing or reciting a poem, something along that lines. And this worked well in CPEP because we had kids coming in from multiple school districts. So it was really important to use it as an icebreaker, building community, as well as using the technology to serve those two purposes. So I think it works well in terms of doing that. There's some rough guidelines, but the full assignment is available. So once we handled these individual tutorials as well as did this Hello Friend tutorial, you can see that we're now need to dive in a little bit more involved in the mobile app development. And this is when you really find out if App Inventor is going to be for everybody in your classroom. Now, given that this example here is a Saturday program and the variety of students, the next curriculum setup that I designed was to make sure that App Inventor is the focal point, but it's not forcing every student to participate. So what we did instead is that we had the challenge that the 4 people got together and they had to create a company, and that company had to come up with a theme or a motto or a mission statement, and they had to build an app based on that theme. And then, as all companies have other areas, not just the app development, each person in that company now would serve a new role. So we decided to create a company that you would have an app developer and sometimes 2 app developers working together, but also we need to have a web presence. So we had a web designer. We needed a social and digital media specialist in order to manage all the social media pages and provide video and photos for all the other digital outputs here. And then we were putting on an expo, so we wanted to make sure that we did have that print media available as well, business cards and brochures and posters and things of that like. So throughout the 5-week session, all 4 of these people are working together to make a unified project around a unified company or theme. And all of them kind of more of a very fluid system where people can get up and just kind of talk, hey, what do you need from me in order to make this website work and whatnot. So that worked. For the most part, I think that worked out really well, and this is the format that allows everybody to be a significant part of a group and use their skills or choose to learn something new if they want, and you build on the strengths. So not only are we learning a lot of concepts about STEM, but we're also learning about entrepreneurship and working together. And so I found out that that's really what worked well. And reflecting upon all these 3 classes, I find that, the team building is always there when you provide the company model and using App Inventor as the tool, but it provides everybody to kind of build off their strengths. Obviously, there's a lot of problem solving when you're going through a development process. The creative thinking to solve those problems or to get the program off the ground initially is crucial. And Shay already talked a lot about the real-world application, and I've seen evidence of it in my own classroom just in the first year. People reaching out wanting my students to create apps for them. As we know, if you're a teacher, you know that your #1 challenge always is time, right? So I think that learning the scope of the project and what they're capable of doing in X amount of days or weeks or what you're able to give, and being flexible in order to kind of have those needs. The quiz app that Joe made, I thought we were going to do that in 4 to 6 weeks. Took him 3 months, and he finally finished it on the day of the final exam, and it was a beautiful experience. But that makes it really challenging if you have other objectives to meet in your class. So I find that that's something I'm still going to be working with and kind of massaging to make it work best. And so, yeah, I thought that might be helpful just to kind of reflect a little bit on what I thought worked and what was a challenge. So what we'd like to do for the rest of this time here, we want to do a little Q&A, and maybe we should do that now or at the end. But what we'd like to do is step you through one of the activities that we would do if we were the students. I mean, we were the teachers and you were the students. One of the feedback we got from our proposal was, that's great, there's a lot of great resources about developing the app, but how do the kids come up with the idea to begin with? Where's the creative thought? Like, how do you guide your students in coming up with a viable concept for an app? So we thought it might be nice to do a little activity with you to kind of see what I've done in my classroom before. And so it'll involve us doing a little group work, and then we're hoping that afterwards, depending on the time, we'll have some sort of sharing of the ideas, and we'd like to maybe do it in a Shark Tank style and see out there if anybody wants to invest money in a particular idea. Yeah, it's always makes it more interesting. So we might need to have a volunteers to be the Shark Tank panel. Who wants to feel like a billionaire? Right on. So, Shay, do you think that maybe we should just see if there's any Q&As before? I know we're going to be pulling up the today's meet as we're working, but maybe now might be a good time.
Yeah,
If-
let's do that. Questions or comments?
About, I think the kids like it when you put the stuff up on Google Sites instead of the pros and cons to that. Any other input, cons were?
Well, I think that I've had two major cons. First of all, if your students know anything about web development, they tend to get frustrated with the Google Sites because they try and make it very user-friendly. And then all of a sudden you're like, why can't I change this? Or why can't I find this? So if the students are web savvy, it might be more frustrating to them. And then the other thing I found that when I use a Google for Domains for CPEP, the public nature, private versus public, depending on what domain you're using it for, is that we had issues with the QR codes. We can't scan them and go directly to the download because of the settings. And that's been a struggle because of balancing the privacy with the exposure. So I've still kind of open-minded for solutions on that.
What time of year is this CT Expo?
I'm sorry?
The competition?
Yeah, the CT Expo, that's actually a large competition of many courses. It's put on by Education Connection, which is our regional education resource center. And that is the state competition for my course would have been developing a mobile app centered around responsible design.
So you have to be under your program to do it.
Yes, I think that it really depends on how the grant's written every year, really, right? So the name changes a little bit as well. So, but if you go to CT Expo, you can get a lot of information there. I've been part of that now for about 12 years. I used to do it as an after-school program, and then I got it made into a course. So it's an amazing class. It's all blended learning.
What devices do you use in your classroom? Because not every kid has an Android phone.
Yeah, well, I was fortunate enough to get the funding for that, so I did a lot of painful research. Everything has the word Galaxy or Nexus in it, so just FYI. Ralph was nice enough to lend us some phones, but then I ended up buying the Google Nexus, and I also got the Galaxy Tab 2.0. So, which we do have some devices here today if people want to check them out. I have both of those
There
here.
is an emulator.
You have the emulator, yes, for sure, but it's the cool factor. The kids want the phone. Yeah, and then of course you're limited, of course, but still, they still want that cool factor.
Oh, yeah, and it definitely has.
Yeah.
The emulators improved over the past few years?
The emulator is still, what seems to limit the emulator is sometimes permissions of being able to launch it under a student account. And so it can be a little bit hard to get it set up and running, but the emulator is fully functional to the extent of the things you can do in emulation mode. So you can't get GPS data and you can't shake the phone and that kind of thing. You can't take pictures. There's no camera for real, but it can do a lot of the things, especially for visual layout. We call it live debugging to see the layout of your app.
For App Inventor 2.0, is the emulator also online? Or is it-
Yeah, the emulator, so we had to really do a magic trick there. We have this brilliant network engineer at MIT who figured out a way that you launch a daemon on your machine and then your web browser is able to talk to that, because that's a security issue. Your browser's not supposed to be able to do stuff on your local machine. But yes, we have an emulator. Right now it only works on Mac, but also App Inventor 2 is only in alpha. So we plan to have a fully functional emulator that will be a little bit easier to use than the existing one. But basically we're using the emulator that Google puts out for Android developers. So.
And when will 2.0 be live?
Well, it's live right now. That URL I gave you is live. We're announcing it tomorrow. But as far as being like really stable for students to use, the earliest I'm willing to commit to is December, and that might even end up being a stretch. So you have to stay tuned. But right now I'm comfortable saying September. We'll see what happens in September. I mean December, sorry, December. You're welcome to try it out now, but I wouldn't work with a whole group of students and hope that work doesn't get lost and that kind of thing. It's alpha. It's in testing.
Will you track and will the projects that we've done on App Inventor 1 transfer over to App Inventor 2?
Yep, they will, but you will not be able to go back. And I don't even think we've worked that out yet, but the developers assure me that they have a way for you to convert your App Inventor 1 projects over, and then you're in App Inventor 2 forevermore after that.
Until 3.
Until, yeah. So we should probably
Yeah.
switch
Any other
to the
last
activity.
question?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're hoping that you can self-divide yourselves in groups, small
We have
groups.
about
of
40 people. So
40 people, so 4,
groups of
3 or 4, irrelevant.
Yeah.
And so what's going to happen is that we will, let me see.
So find your 3 closest neighbors and make
Yep.
groups of, teams of 4, roughly teams of 4. If you only have 3, that's okay.
Okay.
Oh,
So once you find your group of 3 or 4, I'll just go over your assignment. There are 4 decks of cards up here. So you'll need to send a representative to select one from each pile. And the color, they're color coded. And you'll see that your job is to brainstorm an idea for an app that incorporates the elements of each card. So you have, the yellow has the problem, your problem in society that you need to solve through your app. Maybe it's apathy. How is your app going to help solve the problem of apathy? The red is the mechanic or the behavior app. What does it need to do? It needs to track something. Okay. And green, what's the value of the purpose of the app? Well, it's to inform the user. And then finally, what's the style of the app? It'll give you an existing app that you have to create it, that it's in the likeness, like it needs to be like Bump somehow. So it allows students to have to go and check out these apps and find the pros and cons of them, obviously, but it really stretches them to have to find a way to create an app to involve all of these aspects. And then, of course, we have kids defend. How do you think you solved apathy with this app, and what does it track, and how is it like Bump, and what are you informing the user of? So we're hoping that you'll have some experience, and we'll probably do this for about 12, 15 minutes at best, and we'll go from there. So again, please send a representative up, take 1 card from each pile, please. What? Oh, yeah, okay. Needless to say, if we were in a legit classroom setting, we would, adjust the time accordingly. But it's going to be fun to see what you came up with in the short period of time. So right now, I'm going to ask volunteers. Does any one company want to come up and try and pitch their idea to venture capitalists? We have one group. They need some competition. Come on now. Oh. All right. Okay, we got 2 groups. We might have time for a third if somebody's interested. You kind of want to. I can sense it. All right. All right. So that means we now need our venture capitalists. So Ralph Morelli is going to be one of our venture capitalists. 3. Okay, so we'll go based on time. It'll be fun. All right, so yeah, exactly. Usually when students pitch, it's the elevator pitch, right? And what's the theory of the elevator pitch? You've got 3 minutes where you're at the bottom floor going up to the top floor with venture capitalists, right? So we're going to give you 1 minute. There's your investing money. You can choose which company. Do we have a third investor or no?
Somebody who's not presenting, be a third investor. Please.
I will. Okay, right on, Arta. There you go. Okay, so why don't you 3 sit up here in our Shark Tank panel. And first group, it's all of you. Yep, come on up.
Well, actually, no, if we sit here, they'll face the group, so that's better.
Do we need them at the podium at all? Okay, yes, so you're at the podium. Well, you'll tell us what they are. Ooh, sorry. Wake up.
Yeah, we already have the interface already written.
Okay, let me put this.
We used App Inventor. Who wants to?
Okay, I'll go through the. Okay, so our problem was health and well-being. We had to do it by voting. So the mechanics was voting. Green. Oh, the green. Sorry, I screwed up. Animal welfare was the problem.
It's our problem to solve
Yeah.
by voting.
And then by voting, and the green was health and well-being, and calorie count was the app.
Does this come out of our minute?
There's probably about 40 or 45 different animal welfare groups that are all vying for your money. And so our app is going to allow you to vote for the animal welfare group that you want to donate to. And so what we're going to do on some type of cyclic basis, like a year, 6 months, a month, we haven't really decided that yet. We're going to take this list of 45. Whoever gets the most votes gets all of the money, like $1 a vote. So your dollar then will go toward, oh, no. Okay, I guess our minute's up. Thank you for your time. And so the winner at the end of this cyclic process will get all of the dollar votes that were put in. That welfare group will then be disqualified for like the next year.
And the way we do it is that, so if it's over a course of a year, every month that list will drop the bottom 3. So that list gets shorter and shorter, and we'll have a bar graph showing, you know, the progress of each particular organization as it goes through. And the amount of money put in will depend on how many votes you actually get towards a particular organization.
The problem that we feel we solved is that there are so many demands today on your money, which of course is finite. And, you know, there's, besides all the animal rights organizations that we found, there's, of course, the diseases and child welfare. There's endless demands on people's money. So this is at least a way to sort of focus, for the majority to decide and focus all the money. The big pot will go to one organization that the people feel.
We'll link it to your email so that, you
If
know,
you want,
yeah, so that
Yeah.
you know, don't have to vote, and that we can be able to pass that information on to the, whatever the winner is for that year.
Yep, with a nice little bar graph that shows up that currently where all the money is, you know, who's ahead.
Oh, it's called I Heart Critters.
Oh yeah, it's called I Heart Critters.
Yeah.
Right.
So you end with the bang.
And a logo would be like a composite animal.
Griffin. Thank you for your time and money.
We're still holding on to our money for now.
As you can imagine, the students get really excited when they take money to hold it in their hands, and they're really excited when they earn it.
Oh, we have to get it at the end. I don't know how this goes.
Can you tell them, like, start by telling them what our stuff was?
All right. Hi, pollution was our problem. So a real serious problem. And our behavior mechanics was supposed to be repairing. So world peace, repair pollution. And the purpose was tradition. And then Skype was the style.
All right. So when we were talking about this, we started talking about smells. Oh, sorry. We were talking about smells that we both liked and disliked. And so have you ever driven by a fresh bread factory and thought, wow, I really wish I could just share this wonderful smell? Have you ever had a terrible smell in your neighborhood and wish that you could collect a little more information about that and share it with City Hall so it would stop smelling so bad? Well, we have a really great app for you. It's called Smell Chat. And and what it is it's geolocated smells recorded and transmitted to, like, saved for you and transmitted out to your friends. And there's a little bit of a hardware project included in this because we're going to have like a little Stripe style dongle for your phone that you just plug in, and it both can record the ambient smell in the air and then also, you know, with a little puff of air, transmit it back to you, whatever your friends are smelling. So, so some of the features of this app include an OpenStreetMap layer. You know, you'll record these smells and upload your coordinates of that smell and a signature up to OpenStreetMap. You'll have a history of smells on your phone. We think that we have a really innovative technology that we're calling. You have to read it.
Smell check.
I'm sure you can out what that is. Anyway, yeah, we think that it'll both be fun and also an incredibly useful tool for figuring out smell-related pollution in your area.
An alternate version of GPS.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm in Newark now.
Okay. So I'm Renee. This is Steve.
Greg?
Greg, okay. So Steve grew up having to move a lot, and that makes it really hard when you have to start at a new school. And this happens to a lot of kids these days. So our problem is displacement. Our mechanism is moving. Our value and purpose is cooperation, and our style of app is My First Yoga, which is a slide deck style. So what this app is going to do is help a new kid integrate into a classroom. And it's called?
New Kid on the Block.
So the new kid on the block starts with the app and goes to kid number 1. And it asks a question, helps the kid number 1 ask the question that comes up on the slide deck. Like,
comes up with pre-formatted questions like, what's your favorite color? What's your favorite sport?
so kid number 1 gets one question and gets the answer. The other kids don't know. So what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is yellow.
So then kid number 2 gets introduced to new kid and gets to ask the question, oh, what's your favorite sport?
My favorite sport is Frisbee.
And then it goes on and on. So every kid in the classroom gets one piece of information about the new kid. And then at the end, the app goes around and each
We all
kid
get
introduces that piece of information about the kid. So, new kid likes the color.
New kid's name is Greg, and his favorite color is yellow. That you didn't know.
And I know he likes Frisbee. So by the time the app has moved around the circle of kids, Greg feels welcomed, and he feels like every kid knows a piece of information about him.
Okay, so now's the moment of truth. Investors? Who?
You should invest in us because you haven't.
Go ahead and give them your money. Because we're all, quickly, give them your money. It's your money.
Well, I'm going to split it 3 ways, but I'm going to give...
I was just going to stand next to you, actually. Okay.
I'm splitting mine 3 ways, and I'm giving a slight bonus to the smell checker, because I smell a winner there.
What are you doing, Arta?
I want to thank everybody, and I think I'll just keep the money. No. I think that I would go with the new kid on the block. And the reason is that it gets the class involved in it. And it's really something that they could do it whether they were a new kid on the block or not. So that they're sharing something about themselves and they get to know about each other. So I'm going for a new kid on the block.
All right. And I'm going to go with the I Heart My Pet. What is it called? Because I like the idea of a crowdsource, like, what are other people doing? Because if we pool our money, it's more important. And I think it shows a real power of mobile devices, or the power of the web to see what other people are up to. But I definitely give kudos to the other 2 groups because I think the social aspect of the New Kid Block is great, app is great, and the comedy factor of the smell thing. How great for App Inventor if we could come up with a sensor that does that. That would be awesome. So, great job. So we're like 3 minutes over,
Yeah.
but...
Yeah, we're 3 minutes over.
Yes. Where did you get the cards? Where are they from?
I designed them.
You made
so
them?
I made them with a group of kids, so you can make your own.
They're a really nice print
So-
job, though.
Sure. Yeah.
They're a really
They're
nice print
online.
job.
I'll try and find a link, because there is a place, because I used to do it with Make a Movie when I had them do digital movie and they had to come up with a plot. So it's a really good angle. You can use it with any of your projects. So it's a good brainstorming activity. You can make an app out of it. Okay, that's what we could do.
Yeah.
So
we're- I
anyway,
don't know
thank
how-
you for coming, and
I don't know how soon this room gets taken over, but we're happy to stay right here for questions.
Yep.